Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this panel discussion on Art in the Cloud. Art in the Cloud is an online and offline event of Arts Electronica Festival 2021, Garden Hong Kong. This event includes 3 parts. Part 1 is the online exhibition, which is now on Arts Electronica Festival website and Garden Hong Kong website. The second part is the online panel discussion, started from yesterday to 11th September. Part 3, Art in the Cloud, is a program of Garden Hong Kong exhibition, a physical exhibition at Osage Gallery in Hong Kong. The discussion will be recorded. If you don't want to be recorded, please turn your video off. Today, the discussion topic is redefining art presentation. I am Mac, the creator, with the support of my colleagues, Lisa Park-So-Young, Charlie Ip, and Sophie Jiang. And this event, Art in the Cloud, is chaired by Maurice Benayoun, the pioneer media artist worldwide, and the professor at the School of Creative Media, City University of Hong Kong. I would like to take this chance to thank for the support of the Neurodesign Lab, ASIM, that is the Center of Applied Computing Interactive Media, School of Creative Media, City University of Hong Kong, and Osage Art Foundation. The inspiration of Art in the Cloud comes from the idea virtual art space. Virtual art space is not a new concept. It has been explored for more than 20 years, but the development have not been well recognized until the COVID-19. In the past 18 months, it almost becomes the only solution to rebuild the human connection and receive high attention. I can say that this is a miracle, but what does this miracle tell us? That is, it proves that this is a situation that everyone has been waiting for, and this moment has appeared now. We have 4 panel discussions started from yesterday. Today is the second day of the discussion. We are happy to have Professor Alvaro Caccinelli to be the moderator. So Professor Caccinelli, may I address you as Alvaro in our discussion today?
Please, please.
Alvaro is the associate professor, co-founder of Extended Reality Lab at the School of Creative Media, City University of Hong Kong. To know more about Alvaro, again, please visit our website, hkgardens.com. Now, may I pass the time to Alvaro and our speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anne. So, yeah, my name is Alvaro. It's an honor, and I have the pleasure to welcome to this, she was explaining, the second panel of the Arts Electronica Garden. And the subject, of course, is around the online things. And in particular, we want to hear these 7 artists from 6 countries, if I'm not mistaken, talking about their views on how art presentation is redefined when online spaces. And we are covering net art, machine learning, identity of the artwork, NFT people on online, NFT, of course, I said, curation, digital craftsmanship. I'm always trying to make a list. So it's going to be very interesting. And then with that being said, because we have very short time, we will hear the artists present themselves in only 2 minutes. Take care of that. Then show some video that they're presenting and why they are showing this to generate a discussion in between the artists. And at the end, all the public that is here will collect some questions. And so it has to be lively. It's very interesting because these people are working on different media and spaces, and we are all forced to be online at some point. So we want to hear from practitioners. So with that, let's introduce the first speaker, which is Jeffrey Geringer from the US and now Hong Kong. So please introduce yourself. You have 2 minutes. And we will, yeah.
Cool. Yep. Hello, my name is Jeffrey Geringer. I am a recent immigrant to Hong Kong. I am an artist. My background is in sculpture and architecture. And my main body of work is basically dealing with semiotics and 3D point cloud GAN. So, whoops. Oh, I need to share my screen, don't I?
This is a very interesting phenomenon.
Yep. Okay, so here's some of my various links to my website. Feel free to check them out. Basically, Geringer.work. So I most recently participated in a group exhibition in Brooklyn called Left Unsaid. I showed these 4 pieces, which are the body of work I'll be talking a little bit about. It's called Object Americana, and it comprises these 4 sculptures. These were made using a sort of experimental process of actually questionnaire results. So I polled immigrants to the United States on objects that they associate with the country throughout their lives, to sort of get a feel for the cultural image that America has, both at home and abroad. So I divided them up into past, present, and future. This is the past object, which is a combination of the Statue of Liberty and the McDonald's logo. This is the present, which being 2020 was a bust of Donald Trump and a suburban McMansion house. And this was the future, which is a combination of a guillotine and an electric bicycle. Actually, this one has ended up as the 4th sculpture because for all 3 categories, everyone mentioned flags and guns. So this is a combination of a flag and a gun. More recently, this was actually a prototype. This is a skull gun, 3D print. More recently, I've done a sort of smaller project called MimeGAN, which I basically, a lot of what I try to do is like focused on ethical data set production. And so I commissioned a friend of mine to take a series of portraits of me and then use those as a data set for a GAN, a regular 2D GAN image generation. So that's these really creepy images you see here. That's pretty much it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so great. So we'll have more time to see your video and the question discussion. So this is just for everybody to know each other. So the second one now will be Joanna Hoffman from Poland, right? And she's in Greece. Great. So Joanna.
Yeah.
Nice to
So welcome. Yes, it's okay. You can hear me? Yeah. So first of all, of course, I would like to welcome everybody. And I would like also to thank the organizers of Ars Electronica Hong Kong Garden for inviting me to this outstanding panel, and especially curator Anne Mac for all her work. But I would like also to express my appreciation to Professor Pei Chuen, not only for her outstanding work, but also to thank for introducing me to this excellent environment. Thank you so much. So I'm an artist and professor of the University of Arts in Poznań in Poland. When I'm running the Studio for Transdisciplinary Projects and Research, this is the first of such kind in Poland, creating bridges between academic, artistic, and scientific milieus. And I'm also co-founder of Art and Science Energy Foundation and Art and Science Node in Berlin. So I am convinced that it is extremely important and urgent today to open closed traditional academic systems, structures, both artistic and scientific, and to create platforms for interdisciplinary, intercultural cooperation and knowledge exchange. Also to enhance an innovative communication strategy through art for the extraordinary speed of science progress. And I believe that art and artists can contribute strongly to creating new structures of societal communication and democratization of knowledge, increasing public awareness, engagement, the crucial thinking and yeah, being more involved. So our needs to bridge the gap between science and society if society wants to be actor for the future. My other crucial concern is that we have to create new cultural narratives for directing ourselves toward the future we want to live in and not in which we will be forced to live. In my own artistic practice, I focus around the quest for identity, my own dynamic data set within the universal big data processing, using various cultural and scientific threads and perspectives, from Pythagorean harmony of the world to epigenetics and evolutionary algorithms, from Vitruvian woman to rhizosphere. I will speak about later in my short presentation. And once I was called a poet, a dreamer in a scientific environment, and I think it is the best term I can associate with. Thank you.
Alvaro, I think we cannot hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was speechless because it was a super interesting presentation. So yeah, we are keeping in time. That's great. So we will have more time to discuss all these things. So wait, please keep it 2 minutes. So now the other person is Tobias.
Thank you, Alvaro. And it's quite wonderful that you asked us where we come from and where we are now. So I'm 4 meters above you and 23 meters south-southwest. Pretty much in the same building, yet so far away and yet so close. So my name is Tobias Klein. I'm an associate professor here at the School of Creative Media. I'm trained as an architect and I worked as an architect and educator in the UK for more than 14 years before coming to Hong Kong 7 years ago. I took over the MFA program here in the School of Creative Media, which coincided with the idea of establishing a larger discipline of digital craft, questioning transfer and transformation methods between existing traditional craft method, material-based thinking, and immaterial-based digital thinking. I think there's not much more to say to me. 2 minutes is pretty long. I'm German, if that matters at all. Don't think so. So I'll happily gain a minute here for somebody else to run over for a minute. Thank you. And Alvaro, your microphone is still not on.
Okay, this time it's not because I was speechless. No, so yeah, thank you. So now Cédric Maridé from France and Hong Kong.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks for the invitations. Maybe I'll take the minutes from Tobias. Let's see. Thank you, Tobias. My name is Cédric Maridé, and I'm a research-based artist working in Hong Kong since 1999. I'm currently holding a position of assistant professor at the Academy of Visual Arts at Hong Kong Baptist University. I would say that my work often explores the act of listening, collecting, and archiving for possible reinterpretations and material for different forms of writings. They usually relies on field recordings, and especially sound recordings, like in the Brazilian rainforest, in South Africa, or in the Arctic Circle, where I did here series of interventions with projections documented through photographs in the ghost town of Pyramida in Svalbard archipelago. My work takes the form of an assemblage to create alternative narratives about our world that often deals with science, histories, systems of knowledge, and fiction. I explore different mediums, such as sound compositions on fixed media, so released a couple of sound compositions, sound installations, video works, works on paper, here with a crystallized print, or kinetic sculptures among other mediums. So here there's like 4 robotic turntables creating a specific ecosystem. And with specific LPs, and also these kinetic sculptures are reproducing the phenomenon of sun halos with lighting box that project light through crystals. I have also collaborated with other artists like Jeffrey Shaw and Sarah Kenderdine on a series of sound compositions made for the 360 AV systems on different projects, or also full dome projections like this work at the National Museum of Australia. I also have collaborated with Angela Su to compose sounds for many of her films, like for her most recent film, Lacrima. My latest work, entitled Humming, is also actually related to the work presented for this event. Is an 8-channel sound composition for voices with 48 prints and 6 drawing scores that deconstruct recent international public slogans through a pseudo-linguistics analysis and translate them into musical notes sung by a choir as a way to kind of explore the question of how we sound together. And I think I'll be talking about these notions a bit later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we have Ellen Pao. So,
Yes.
no, oh,
Hello, Alvaro. I'm supposed to have Charlie to give out my slide to introduce myself. That is the last one, sorry. This is the last slide. Can I have the first slide, please? Hi, thank you for having me in the presentation. In these 2 minutes, I will introduce myself. I'm a video artist and a curator from Hong Kong. I started making Super 8 and photography with my dad when I was very young, and shift to newer media like video in the mid-80s. I made a number of one-channel videos and video installations and travel a lot besides working as a full-time radiographer at the hospital in Hong Kong. Together with Video Touch and Microwave Media Art Festival, which were co-founded by me and my artist friend, like Mei Feng, which I will talk about her later on, I start curating web art, performance, and new media festival from the 90s. On the slides are some of the works that I produced in the 80s to early millennium. So on the left side is a video installation series called Pledge. And on the right side, on the upper right side is the one-channel video Drain 2, which is made in 1989. And on the bottom is, for some reasons, that was made in 2003. So to slide 3. Over the 30 years of experiencing the fast development of the time-based media from analog to digital, offline to online, disruptive technologies such as the Web 1.0 to Web 2.0, biotechnology, streaming, and even Zoom meeting, which is we are having now. All these technology revolutionized the visual cultures of our times. My home city also had experienced the change since the arrival of the millennium and the national security law. My art is the witness and response to these times of new order or disorder. I make film, video art, augmented reality, data sonification, art science project, etc. I think this is the, I have to explain the works that is presented here. On the left side is a project that I used the emblem flower of Hong Kong to do a genome sonification project, which is called Emergence. On the bottom is a project, a spectral series, which I made with the Edward Mullin Gallery using the thermal camera and heated wax. And on top, the swallowing sequence was made in a hospital. That was the daily work for me in the hospital. So I think you have known enough about me now, and I pass it to another person then.
Thank you very much. We will never know too much about all these artists, but thank you for keeping in 2 minutes. So, so now the Yu Chuan Tseng, sorry for pronunciation, from from Taiwan, but you're in Hong Kong, right?
Jensen, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, hi everyone. Very thanks to everyone to invite me to this event. My name is Yu Jensen. I am in Taipei now. I'm a digital artist, curator, also a professor in a university. And I has been working on digital art since 1998 and started my nail art project in 2002. And my works and the article will select for presentation in the ACM Multimedia, ICR, Leonardo. I have been to City University for ICR conference a few years ago. And as a curator, my curation topic focus on the gender and the digital culture. So recently I have my curation exhibition such as Lost in the Dream, Immortal on Screen in National Taiwan Museum of Fine Arts. Also, I have Shall We Play? It is Showtime, Light on Light Off in Taipei Art District Festival. So all the topic is all about the digital life when we live in our digital device, how we become a virtual and the reality, how to switch between the virtual and the reality. And the other topic is about gender study. So I focus on woman artists. So that's such as like being an artist and a mother. Also, I fall there I am to talk about the woman artist situation in contemporary art in Taiwan. So recently, I also got invitation from Ministry of Culture of Taiwan to curate Taiwan New Media Art in Washington, D.C. So in the American University Museum and Casa Center and International Arts and Artists. My hours is focused on the human in digital life. I think we are becoming information code and the database in the cloud. And we all switch between virtual and the real life. And we all driven and infected by digital virus. I will make a quick brief introduction about my work later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So now I all really wanted to know more about everybody. So let's finish this with Ken Bueno. Who's in
Hi.
from
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Okay. I'll get my PowerPoint going. Hi, I am a composer, vocalist, and sound artist. My work, can you hear me? Can you hear? Okay. I'm a composer, vocalist, and sound artist. My work lives in the interstice between these 3 output modes, I create unique spaces for audiences and ensembles to inhabit with the added focus of myself as a vocalist utilizing bespoke techniques, often with a megaphone. I am a professor at UC Berkeley. Breath is at the ontological center of my art practice as a vocalist, and taking a cue from the poet Robert Haas's thesis that poetry is a physical structure of the actual breath of a given emotion, my practice transposes this notion into music through physical valence. I believe that physical gestures are indeed mapped to given emotions. When we hear the operatic tenor Pavarotti sing a high C and linger there for tens of seconds, he not only suspends his breath, but we too, as listeners, suspend our breath. Physiovalence directs our bodies to vivify in real time the suspension of our breath in parallel with the music to which we are listening. In my work, through circular breathing, that Pavarottian lingering moment is expanded to minutes, not seconds. The phenomenological reading of that expanded lingering exacerbates traditional modes of analysis in terms of structural hearing. My work foregrounds my body as a specific instrument. Much of my music is person-specific, wherein the intricacies of performance practice are brought into focus in the technical achievements of a specific individual, fused inextricably with that performer's aura. In an era in which we are increasingly rendered anonymous through digitization, person specificity stands against the normative business practice of neocolonial transportability in classical music and says, no, you cannot replace people who look like me. Later, in my 7-minute talk, I will discuss with you further about how my work seeks to reclaim presence and the body in an age where our trace of having lived is under threat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was already poetry. Very interesting. Okay, perfect. So now, so we have an idea of what everybody does. So now we are going to show the actual works that we've been presenting and submitting to this specific panel, and it will be follow up after each of you present the video. It will be follow up to question about why you consider that to be an interesting topic to generate that discussion around these new ways of presenting our works. Okay, so same plan. We go through all these lists of people presented. So Jeffrey, now we have this. So I think Charlie has to put the video, Jeffrey. Then you have like questions, 7 minutes, and answers, and then discussion 6 minutes, something. Yeah. Just unmute myself. Jeffrey, is we don't hear the sound if there is sound.
Oh, there isn't any sound.
Okay, yeah.
It's a really low frame rate, though. I wonder what's up with that. All right.
Okay, thank you very much. So that's the work you presented. So now we'll just ask some questions and then give you the opportunity to just explain a little this work. So, well, we all see these objects, like virtual objects, and there's some, I mean, I noticed some characteristics of objects. It's not anything. So you call this work Object Americana, right? So it's a kind of collectivo. Why this sort of works? Why we choose them to start with, and why somehow online is an interesting place looks like you're selling stuff. You're looking at something that relates to everybody, you know, guns and stuff like that. So could you elaborate? Is that this space, online space, is an opportunity to make objects collectibles, and or is a space and a museum? Just develop that.
Yeah, yeah, let me share my screen. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay, so I'm Jeffrey Geringer, very happy to be here. I'm an artist, 3D designer, and recent immigrant to the proud territory of Hong Kong. Today, I'm going to share my story of stress, anxiety, and just a little bit of optimism for the cutting edge issue of NFT technology in the art world. The piece we just saw represents a sort of frustrated, currently aborted attempt to make my main body of work into crypto art. When this article was published on December 14th, 2020, it caused a veritable maelstrom in the newly minted crypto art communities that had sprung up over the preceding months. Long story short, participating in most NFT minting emits a gargantuan amount of carbon, turning an individual's carbon footprint into a carbon bulldozer. I had heard of the concept of a decentralized method of certifying and selling art, got very excited, modulated my main body of work to fit the most basic NFT format, a looping GIF, and spent countless hours more rendering animations in that new style using a new interpolation-based methodology, finally resulting in the 4 preliminary works you've just seen displayed here. I completed all that and was in the middle of researching the exact way to actually mint an NFT when this article was published. I was completely devastated. Very, very briefly, let's back up a bit and explain what an NFT is for the uninitiated. In brief, a blockchain is a distributed ledger system. It's a way for many people to agree on a single canonical set of transactions that have occurred. An NFT is simply an entry on the blockchain that associates a crypto wallet with something. For our purposes, generally that something is a certificate that says the owner of this wallet canonically owns this piece of digital art, thus making that art crypto art. So let's think out some pros and cons here, shall we? Associating digital art with an NFT allows it to be easily purchasable and tradable. It even allows artists to collect royalties on future secondary sales of their work, something that virtually never happens in the traditional art market. NFT minting platforms are easy to use if you already have a bit of cryptocurrency, so NFT technology allows many, many more artists to sell art than have ever been able to before. This is particularly impactful in the marginalized communities and in the global South, where artists have traditionally toiled in anonymity. All of these qualities are big pros for artists who traditionally have been face-to-face with the commercial art world that is still heavily Western-focused, white-focused, male-focused, and above all, capital-focused. It's a painful bind to be in. Commercial galleries only want to show work that sells. Work that sells is bought from galleries. If you have no track record of selling work in galleries, how exactly are you going to get the ball rolling? Crypto art, therefore, has been a sort of democratizing agent for art selling. Not all crypto art platforms have the same ethos, though. Here's a screenshot of Super Rare, a self-styled, highly exclusive NFT market. Super Rare is an invite-only and more recently application-based art market. This super rarity has worked flawlessly as intended, making it one of the most expensive crypto art markets around, not so democratic. The much more glaring problem with crypto art is the one I've already mentioned. Most blockchain interactions are an astounding ecological horror show. Most blockchains use a methodology called proof of work. They function by deliberately forcing users to expend as much electricity as possible. Bitcoin mines are huge warehouses full of GPUs chugging away at full capacity 24/7, like a render farm from hell. This methodology is obsolete. The only reason Bitcoin and other proof of work chains continue to exist is simply apathy on the part of their investors. Proof of stake chains are the alternative, and they have something like 1/100th to 1,000th the carbon footprint per transaction. The problem is that the current biggest crypto art platforms use proof of work. The two I mentioned, OpenSea and SuperRare, are perpetrators. But there are alternatives. One called Collement has tried to replicate the SuperRare application-based gatekeeping model, driving up prices a bit. My personal favorite is one called Hic et Nunc, which is entirely open source, and has a thriving community on Discord. I personally believe that any artist who is not under the grinding pressure of poverty has no excuse for not divesting from proof of work NFTs. Anyway, it's finally time to mention the much more fun, more abstract concepts that NFT technology brings to the table. That's right, it's time to talk about experience. Speaking as a sculptor, another problem with most crypto art is that it takes the form of images on a screen. Maybe some of those images are moving. Maybe even some of those images are renders of 3D models. But for me, that doesn't necessarily suit how I want my work to be experienced. I truly believe that the embodied experience of viewing a sculpture is not at all the same as seeing it rendered on it as an image on a screen. To demonstrate, you can see this photo of my absolutely gorgeous sculpture, Waving Flag AR-15, Third Epoch Iteration 107, recently displayed in an independent gallery show in Brooklyn, New York. But it's quite obvious that seeing this piece of material in person would be a vastly different experience from what you're currently enjoying. To me, it's completely crucial that someone be able to move around the sculpture and ideally move their head up and down, closer and further, visually exploring all the weird little nooks and crannies of the piece. And believe me, my work rewards such exploration. For this reason, I have gone very far out of my way to make sure that my website contains manipulatable 3D objects of the sculptures from this body of work, Object Americana. Perhaps paintings and other flat, wall-based art forms lend themselves a bit better to the screen, but it's quite likely that many painters would have a few different things to say about that. There's also more abstract things like performance art and relational art to consider. In fact, NFTs lend themselves kind of well to certain relational concepts like group participation and meaning making, but performance art might have a significantly harder time contending with the screen-based presentation mode. I'm quite sure some of our other panelists will address these and similar issues a bit later. In fact, during yesterday's panel, Vincent Reuters mentioned the notion of physical danger as part of a certain in-person art experience. And I think that's an excellent example of something that simply cannot be replicated in the virtual realm. Unsurprisingly, there are already many crypto-based platforms that allow users to essentially create their own virtual 3D space and invite others to come check it out, like one huge persistent Minecraft server. This is an example of an art gallery showing NFT crypto art in CryptoVoxels, one such metaverse. This is a tremendous improvement over the flat web pages we saw earlier, and it allows for genuine placement of sculptural work in an environment you can move around in. Especially coupled to VR or AR tech, there is a great deal of potential here in my opinion. However, in my view, this is a technology that is still in its infancy. Just as a basic example, very few VR implementations allow one to crouch down virtually. Very few VR implementations allow you to walk more than a few feet in a direction. And while they do more or less take care of visual and sometimes audible sensory input, the other plethora of senses tend to get woefully neglected. I have no doubt that one day, likely sooner than I think, VR will match and even exceed our beloved meat space in more ways than one, but that day is not quite today. Another point that was brought up yesterday is acoustics. In VR, acoustics do not really exist the way they do in the real world. One might be able to simulate them with high quality headphones, but both from an audio and from a physiological standpoint, it is not quite the same thing. So for sculptors, performance artists, and sound artists, and many other artists, virtual environments have a very long way to go before they can evoke the same embodiment of a work as a physical space. However, there is of course also the method of taking these constraints of digital art display as inspiration, conceiving of how one's work can be displayed digitally or planning new works entirely around digital display can obviously invoke new innovations and clever outcomes. Just as there are entire fields of art and bodies of work dedicated to exploring materiality, the materiality of digital embodiment is still a very new and, in my view, relatively unexplored territory. Ultimately, I would strongly prefer an animated 3D render of my work to reach the eyes of 10,000 people than a physical version reach the eyes of 100. I guess ideally, I would pick both. So what have we learned today? As long as people are very, very careful about the NFT platforms they use and absolutely never touch proof of work chains, crypto art can provide certain opportunities, communities, concepts, and methodologies that have simply never existed before. I was basically correct to worry about it as much as I did. The emotional roller coaster was a valid experience, but I think I might finally take the plunge and mint a piece or two. Many thanks.
So thank you very much. So, so I'm not completely sure. I'm going to ask some questions. Is there some confusion I think on the order of that? Should I ask the questions so somehow you answer some of the things I was wondering? So the idea is to open a discussion here in between the presentation. So so maybe Anne can say a word. Should I ask again? So this, of course, prefer to ask the question after the presentation as we did, because this is super interesting. You added already many important parameters here. For instance, so I was thinking, something I can see. You really say that you will really enjoy better your work if it was, you know, really physical printed. Then you have this 3D representation. So they look like a two solution, either, you know, making everything completely immersive, have a VR system, go inside this virtual world, having even like immersion acoustic spaces, or maybe printing, maybe giving that opportunity to everybody to have the work printed, you know, for themselves with whatever method they have. There will be only one that is the real NFT protected, and NFT in the real one. That's just exactly how people were doing with prints.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? So where are we going? Because why we care more about now having everything online and having the uniqueness of the artwork? Why you don't give people a possibility to have their work, their in their homes?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that it depends a lot on your goals as an artist. I think that most, well, I guess one could say that there are sort of two somewhat separate goals as any artist, and one is to make good, significant, culturally relevant and impactful work, and another is to make money. And it basically, from what I've observed throughout my career, and you know, since graduating from undergrad, like it's not, those two things rarely seem to coincide that much. And even to the extent that like galleries seem to segregate into like commercial versus like, I guess what I would call independent. So I guess, you know, it's one of those things where like, yeah, 3D printing is my preferred medium. That's because I like the fact that you can add complexity without adding cost, generally, broadly speaking. So like, I think that the idea of, you know, intellectual property basically is what it comes down to in the age of like digital reproduction, is an astonishingly complicated one. Another thing I like about 3D printing is that it does have its own like very distinct material quality that is often overlooked when you know, when the topic is discussed, right? So like, I'm sure Tobias has more to say about this, but like, you know, if I sell someone an NFT of a 3D file and they print it on their own machine, that's necessarily like it's gonna even just look different than like maybe on my own machine, or if I go through a professional service, that sort of thing. And then there's also the possibility of like just reproducing the exact same geometry in different materials, which is not, you know, not traditionally super common. I mean, it can happen. Obviously, you can make bronzes out of plasticine, that sort of thing, but it hasn't like commonly been a traditional thing you can do. So yeah, so I mean, I think that there's, you know, just like VR, 3D printing is excellent and it's an amazing thing and it has its certain use cases, but it's not necessarily like extremely widespread yet. I personally believe that it will be, but I think the timeline is not super short on that. So I mean, it's a weird thing. And then the other question is like, when we're talking about art and talking about like what, you know, like basically like who wants art, like who has art in their homes, and what form does that art take, you know, because like I feel like there's a lot of you know, a high price sculpture, whatever, has a certain context, and that context is usually some high-end gallery, and not that many people are necessarily going to see it. It's not going to necessarily have that much impact versus oh, great example, like a Lucky Cat, right? Like here in Hong Kong, every single shop has like a little Lucky Cat that's like there for you know, to attract love and money. But so like that's like an example of like almost like, I guess what would maybe be termed vernacular sculpture. Like it's kind of like a thing that's has a different relationship to people's lives than things that you would find in galleries. So I guess the other thing I would mention is that like I saw a quote recently that was talking about photography, right? And basically said the most significant photographs are the ones that live in people's photo albums. And I feel like that like as a commentary on the fine art, like photography world, right? And I feel like that same concept is something that every artist should really think about and consider like what exactly it is that they're trying to do. And yeah, so I mean, I guess the idea of like, you know, yeah, you can sell a file with an NFT and someone can print it. That's cool. But it's, you know, the thing about NFT stuff is that there's, unless you're doing conceptual things with NFT, it's not that different than like just a certification from a gallery. And of course, the main thing is that it lets you get around the galleries basically to issue certifications for your own art. But that's like, you know, I've heard of conceptual works that use it, but it's not generally the main focus.
Thank you. No, I just, sorry for cutting you, because my idea is just to, so you can see that you thought a lot about that, because the idea is to also ask other artists here to join this discussion. So ask you a question. So we have so thank you. So do you have other questions? I mean, I'm talking to the other people on the panel. To Jeffrey, you disagree, you don't like his sculptures. You don't want to buy his NFT work.
Bad.
Hi, I would like to say, actually in Taiwan, we have a group of artists. They are really interested in NFT art. They also built their own platform for sell NFT art. But my question is, do you think the NFT art really can save, can solve the problem of the digital artists sell their artwork?
I think that well, right. So that's the other thing I was trying to get at in the presentation, is that like from a like a theoretical standpoint, it should be like very democratic, right? It should allow anyone to do it. It should be super easy for any artist anywhere to do it and make some money doing it. But it seems like so far, just looking at actual data, that it thus far has tended very quickly to reproduce a lot of dynamics of the traditional commercial art world, where, you know, certain people, certain artists like develop a reputation, and then I heard someone talk about like the long tail, right? So I don't have a graphic for this, but like you imagine like a logarithmic graph, right? Like one end is like really, really high, the exponential like kind of end of it, and then the long tail is like the vast majority of artists who maybe can make a little bit of money, you know, maybe break even if they're lucky, kind of thing. And then like the tall part is like, you know, this set of like 100 really like hyped up artists who can make ridiculous amounts of money. Yeah, one thing though I will note is that it seems like, because I mean, I think the other underlying like issue here, which is also, you know, sort of uncomfortable to talk about, is that the commercial art world is like by and large a financial instrument, right? I mean, like it's basically just like a, you know, money laundering scheme often enough, and so like, and so is cryptocurrency. So it's sort of because NFT art is currently so trendy, I've heard that like, of course, there's like a lot of like much higher prices that certain pieces fetch that wouldn't sell normally. So it brings in that same element of like hype and disproportionate value that is not necessarily reflected normally.
Okay, Jeffrey, yeah, it's really, this is a subject you can also, you can continue discussing. It's important to sell, like, you know, money also. But we have to give the time to now the others. So let's show Joanna's work, Joanna's video, and then so you do this presentation you have, as Jeffrey did. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. Sorry, I'm kidding on this. And then we start a discussion. I want others also to join. So I prefer that you start by question directly to her, and then maybe I have something to say. Okay, so please. So very nice, very peaceful. So we are all connected. So, so you have questions. All the other, I will let others to ask some questions to Joanna first. It took too much time when I asked the question. It's time and a half. Please, it's probably inspire you. Otherwise, I will just ask something, right? So your work is actually, yeah, about interconnection. Do you think that the actual, so your content is really fitting this panel? Is your work about, is work being inspired by the fact that you have to do it online? How it would work in, you present that in a gallery, Rhizome and Papillon in particular? What was the difference? People feel more connected with the content?
Okay, to answer your question, I think that I will also start my presentation. So I'll share my screen and make the full screen. You can see it? Yeah? Okay. So actually, I think that when I saw also the title of the conference and our panel, Art in the Cloud, so I thought that, well, a cloud, digital or also a physical, natural, is a part of a larger system of data processing. And we know today that our world is a dynamic net of interconnections, dynamic self-organizing system of interactive data flow from neural networks to the World Wide Web, from river backwaters to social, economic, and cultural phenomena. And every microsecond, there are numerous interactions between all levels of our interconnected reality, which coronavirus, in fact, proved so well. And this novel model of reality requires also new communications strategies and structures, as well as I said, novel cultural narratives, which could open tightly closed systems, economic, social, educational, and cultural. And it is extremely important in the face of local and global crisis and rapid progress of science and technology. And there's always a question how to do it. And I think that for looking for ways how to do it, the nature is the best source of inspirations. And thus, for the today presentation, I choose my recent artistic project, Rhizome Papilla, which is inspired by plants' communication system, which has evolved for millions of years, and especially rhizosphere, which is the underground root rhizome fungal microorganism network, the so-called Wood Wide Web. And it is there that the exchange of resources and signals takes place. And these networks, based on symbiosis, diversity, and interdependence, enable plants to develop and spread. In fact, it was through this symbiosis that they could leave water environment and colonize the land. And they can survive even in very unfavorable conditions. And the rhizosphere operating system is based on the small worlds network model. And its effectiveness inspired the search for organizational solutions and strategies that would favor sustainable development and more efficient distribution of resources, information, and knowledge. And so as an artist, I imagine the whole world as a rhizosphere, a growing, interconnected, not hierarchical network, the future world where organic and inorganic intelligence system will merge into a new hybrid quality. On one hand side, the project refers to the intensive development of Internet of Everything and research on AGI, and on the other to symbiotic networks, strategies of plants as an alternative model of effective social ecosystem. So the big network of small worlds based on diversity, symbiosis, and interdependence, in which the smallest actions, even thought, may affect the well-being of the whole. So when you enter the work, you place yourself in rhizome, surrounded by the imaginative mycelium, made of a web of human settlements, And within this environment, you can see circular cloudy formations, papillas, and the name and form are derived from biological nodular formations, often associated with the sense of touch, taste, or smell, as well as from the root nodule, the organ of symbiosis between plant roots and bacteria, rhizobia, which give plants nitrogen in exchange for carbon. So in my piece, a papilla is a micro component, a symbiotic organ of the future hybrid omni system. And it evolves from chaotic fragments of information, scattered bits of memory, towards a complex semi-biological multi-layered information network in which the boundaries between organic and abstract, micro and macro, between internal and external data processing are blurred. At the end of this information, papilla turns into a virtual eye, and through its pupil, the viewer enters the outside space, the evolving network of rhizosphere. As I mentioned, the piece is realized in the form of VR immersive experience and AR application. In AR version, of course, you can enter or activate Rhizon papilla anywhere you like, merging the virtual and physical environments. To check the connection. But then it's in fact a part of much larger art research educational project, Rhizosphere, the big network of small worlds, which I initiated 3 years ago. And it evolved from the cooperation between the studio for transdisciplinary project and research I am leading at the University of Arts in Poland and the Faculty of Biology in Poznań University. And it quickly also started to grow its inter-academic and interdisciplinary network. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of various institutions, artists, scientists related to the project. And the project, which was inspired by Rhizosphere, became the Rhizosphere itself, according to our asset mission, combining art, science, education, and technology. And Rhizosphere, the big network of small worlds, is an open network of emerging ideas and interdisciplinary communication beyond divisions, proving that art can be the engine of profound structural changes. So last artistic presentation of Rhizosphere was organized by Art and Science Node in the form of exhibition, Capture the Futures, Our Biotech Planet. And the Roots Root Networks and beyond. And because we could not do it in a physical space, we developed the interactive internet and also internet webpage and AR application. So the digital model of a root, devoid of hierarchical order and a specific direction of growth, is the interface of the exhibition. And in the AR version, you can place it in any chosen space. So the virtual root has interactive nodules, each of which opens up a different world of artistic narratives. And the website, on the other hand, offers to enter the root interface and discover artistic narratives hidden in its maze. The exhibition has around 14 artists, and of course there's no time to talk about it, but I would like to invite you to our webpage when you can download also our application for Android and iOS. And of course you can experience the works in various environments. The root nodules, you will find 2 of my artworks, Rhizon Papilla and Vitruvia Lumen, the performative poem, which also draws attention to similarities and differences between the Cultural Revolution of Renaissance, symbolized by Leonardo da Vinci, and of our troubled times, often referred to as the New Renaissance, bridging together art, science, and technology. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you can hear me better now.
Yes.
Yeah. So briefly, I will ask one question and others please ask questions. So you say something very interesting, say like the rhizome itself become the artwork. And it's really interesting. You're talking about creating these communities and how this structure is interesting and inspiring to do this work, what part is the art work, and what's the, I mean, it just have consequences how you create this network for artists to actually do art? Is there reason some art work that inspire people, or is it just an institutional system? Isn't unclear on purpose.
Okay, so it started actually from the cooperation between the students from my studio and Faculty of Biology from the one of the artworks. And it started to become a really an important inter-academic communication structure. Then the Music Academy joined and Faculty of Mathematics joined, but then it spread through our interconnection with other institutions, but also individual artists and scientists. So the Rhizosphere, the big network of small worlds, was initiated by artwork, but it started to be a new structure for interdisciplinary communication. So it joins institutions, but also individual artists, organizations, and yeah, and you will see what will develop and happen. And I think that is very important to also underline that it was developed actually from bottom up, not from up bottom. So that was the need for communication between artists and scientists and society, which actually started this this project. And maybe I will also add that I think that also education is extremely important. And last year, to our Rhizosphere, we joined also a twinning platform. It is an EU platform for schools. So there are schools from Poland, Portugal, and Turkey, which create a special work around the Wood Wide Web and Rhizosphere. So I think this is really kind of a bottom-up and horizontal networking structure, which I think we need so much. I hope that this is the kind of a beginning of opening all these closed systems.
Thank you. Others?
Hi. Thank you very much. That's very inspiring. I've done some reading in the area of botany too. And for example, I know of botanists like Aimee Latterman, who's done scholarship on the Chamaecyparis. These are trees that are catastrophe dependent, stress adapted, and extremophilic keystones. And then they thrive along the ocean coasts in Northern America. And I found some of that, even though it's very botany related, as a metaphor for their resilience. You know, very inspiring, especially during these kinds of times to us, right? So my question is, I have two questions. One question is, are there other kinds of like botanists, researchers that inspired you in terms of your work? And two, when you invoke the word rhizome, for me, I think of Deleuze first, and then then I found it quite interesting that you didn't touch upon him. Are there ways that it did influence his work, influenced you, or you purposely, sidestepped thing? Thank you.
Well, maybe I will start from the second one, because in this very short presentation, of course, I could not touch all inspirations which influence my artwork. And I think that it's a scientific, but also philosophical environment and humanistic. And I think that it is especially, I'm quite privileged to be in the academic environment and having an access to the novel research and science, but also to humanities. And I think that art is a fantastic way to bridge these two perspectives. And Deleuze was one of my favorite philosophers for a long time ago, from a long time. So obviously that has also some impact of my view on the world. But I think that we can learn so much from nature, and especially from plants. And in fact, this discovery of this root system, which is so extremely efficient, it's quite new. It's already like 12 or 15 years. So we are really discovering the new world, and we are discovering new strategies, and which somehow overcome this Darwinian narrative, which is based on which combines the life with a struggle for life and not with a symbiotic coexistence. Did I answer your questions?
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Do anyone else? Or we? Other questions? Okay, so we of course we can please continue discussion after this. Yeah. So yeah, actually, I think it was 2 days ago I saw a very interesting documentary about like fungi and the rhizomes. I think, have you seen it? And yeah, as you were saying, it's being rediscovered because people knew it. And but I think the context of the online, situation we have like actually make you realize that we are all interconnected. This idea of Gaia and okay. So let's then take the opportunity to jump to it's Tobias. Tobias has a rhizome like behind all these dendrites. So please, your turn to present. And I have to mute myself. Someone was messaging. So okay, now so you have a presentation after this, right?
Of course. I mean, with or
Okay.
without question, we can just go into it.
Exactly. So we ask the questions and after that.
Okay, sure. I mean, it's obviously all self-explanatory because we could all read the text that was flashing for 1 second.
No, but you have. Okay.
No, of course, of course.
If you want to take questions now from people,
no,
that's
it's
great.
no. Charlie, if you could start the presentation, that would be wonderful. It's a short presentation. As you can see, I have only 6 slides. Or maybe it's going to be very long because I have to explain or talk something about this. Charlie, could you put this on full screen, please? Or start it. Maybe from the first, yeah, from 1 slide before that. So, well, first of all, thank you for having me here, of course. Thank you as well. Well, actually, first of all, as you can see at the end of the video, this is an artwork that was made in a collaboration between myself and Jane Prophet, who is at University of Michigan, and Victor Leung. And the video was made by Leo Da and Makina, 2 great MFA students, or actually now alumni of the SCM program here. I'm going to talk about 3 artworks and a little bit the idea about what is art in the cloud, or it seems to be for me a very interesting topic because it's or asynchronous topic because the cloud thing seems to be a thing from the past already. Usually when I think about the cloud, it's about how to download things or buy stuff, and doesn't seem to be necessarily a very artistic medium. And on top of that, clouds usually are physical phenomena, fractals that we can't see how large or far away they are, and they're quite beautiful as well. So how does this matter in my work at all? Maybe because all my work is actually not cloud related. About 10 or 15 years ago, I did some work that had some sort of like vague idea of being remotely controlled. And that did work out and had some sort of condensation of digital content into a actual physical form. It did interest me for a while, as long as one could quantify or could kind of create residues of online activity. But maybe I'll start a little bit easier before discussing as well what is the word Unruhe or Unruhe, or why taking even a German word, which describes the idea of a mechanical watching the exchange of kinetic energy in there. So maybe we'll start with the first idea. Charlie, one slide further, please. Thank you. So this work is glass entanglement. It was done in 2020. It was exhibited in the University Museum and Art Gallery first, and then in a large of art at Art Basel, Hong Kong this year. Now, what you see there is traditional glass making. It's actually something like this as well. These are hand-blown glasses that in a material that has a half-life of over 1 million years, in a machinic or in a crafted process that takes minutes, where every of the environmental and traditional craft inputs shape and form the work. It's an inflated material through the breath and through rotational forces, usually ending up in fairly symmetrical works, unless you forcefully pull it apart or forcefully really make it very asymmetrical. And for that, really, really difficult to make. Maybe I'm being a very naughty person working with craftspeople and making their life unnecessarily hard. But what I do there is to explore a notion about digital craftsmen as a form of exchange of forces, of simulations, of scanning, of transformations and transferals. In this work, though, I think what is mostly done here is an idea about the transfer from a physical to a digital format and reversely back from a digital format into a physical representation of sorts. And it is one of the driving elements behind my practice to find a balance or find a notion of exchange between the either ephemeral digital and the physical and the ways how these are intertwined. So the glass that you see here was blown, cut, 3D scanned in certain ways apart from each other and simulated. Then 3D printed elements were attached to it, holding it in tension. In a tension that was quite interestingly fragile and balancing, but not mathematically or computational formed, but actually almost anticipated as if it would be a crafting within wood or marble or other things, anticipating a behavior, obviously forming some thoughts about the idea of would it stand up, will it fall down, will it hold, but not actually using computational tools to analyze point of gravity or so. These are all excluding in my work. I don't use computational tools to analyze before creating. Next slide. Charlie, please, thank you. So in this work, Unruhe now, you have several forces. And forces in the simulation thereof, or the lack of computational simulation, is something that was very exciting to me here. In the back, obviously, in this exhibition, Art Machines, you see the great work of Tomasz Walicki as well. So I always have to say thanks for being in the great presence of other wonderful artists. This work is suspended, and it's a linear movement that is extremely predictable. It's a belt engine motor that basically rotates the sculpture in one direction. In the sculpture itself is 2 volumes of glass intertwined that create 2 with 3 sub-volumes filled up with a saline solution that allows the ferrofluid in there to freely move around and don't stick to things. Now the arms and this kind of chaotic black 3D printed element that you see around it contains magnets. This is actually not yet a slide that we wanted to see, but that's okay. And these spherical magnets are reacting to the first input of force that is linear. So they're rolling around and changing a magnetic field, something we don't see, something that is invisible. something we could recognize with magnets or other things, but our body itself is fairly numb when it comes to electromagnetic fields. Of course, this can be discussed on if you use very strong magnetic fields and other things, but we don't feel it, we don't taste it, we don't see it. So what is interesting, when the spherical magnets are changing the electromagnetic field around this work, the ferromagnetic obviously changes, and these changes of rolling and changing the gravity of it, the point of gravity of the work, continuously create another system overlay of not chaos, that would be too easy, but of a complexity that we can only try to anticipate, but that continuously escapes actually a form of rhythm, almost like a more entropic state. These types of entropy are very interesting to me as well. They are forms of what the first word was of transfer, of transformation. Now, the third work that I want to discuss here quickly, or in the sense of like art in the cloud question mark, is the work that I recently finished that is now going to open at the the Museum of Glass in Tacoma in the US. It's 3 of these wonderful little works that distill water from the air, from our breath. It does it in a very simple chemical way of using using hygroscopic chemicals in the upper part. Of course, that means in gallery environments, these are very specific environments, usually hugely temperature controlled and humidity controlled, that the humidity that gets distilled is mostly from visitors, which is kind of a perverted notion considering most galleries were closed, most public spaces were closed. So when in these short periods of time they were opened, and when there was a celebration of reopening normality, or that what is now maybe a long gone normality, these little creatures would start to work and would filter our breath, the humidity of it, which is 100% saturated air from our body temperature, into droplets of water. And these would be gathered. They are quite salty water because of the process of filtering them out. So in the last slide, Charlie, we found a way of coexisting or cohabitation, a very slow way of distilling something again invisible and imbalanced in our presence or unpresent thereof into something that is actually beneficial. Now, for the photo shoot, I have to make a disclaimer here that these plants are not the real deal. I mean, they are nice plants, but the plants that we are using are more mangrove and are more actually used to the harshness of saline waters. And in the last animation, last film is actually not an animation, you see roughly how this was exhibited in 2020 and how it then changed to now. Again, a little bit too fast to read this all. So I thought it's quite nice that you can press the stop button. Although this seems to be quite long. No. I think you went back in the slide. Yeah, but you can speed up a little bit. That's totally fine. Or start at the middle of the, yeah, that's fine. So in there you see a little bit the idea of the process of presence being physicalized to water into these reservoir systems. This was the version 1. As you can see, those distilling mechanisms or condensators are still separated from the glass body. In the second version, the one that's opening in the middle of this month, they're all becoming one organism and have more reason to exist. Okay, I think we can stop that there. I mean, it's all online as well, so everybody's welcome to look at it. So maybe to bring this to some sort of conclusion that makes sense, art in the cloud is a process of condensation, where the 3 works are present, articulate a synthesis and acknowledgement of both the material and the immaterial, or actuality and digital content. I think that's my contribution, and I'm very happy to receive questions for it. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are condensing here, all people together are condensing to the cloud some meaning.
Well, it is
I
getting
like-
sweaty.
Beautiful metaphor. So I think we are just one comment. We are running kind of out of time because we still have about, I think, 4 people to do that and the question. So the question very
Self-explanatory
briefly,
work, absolutely. Don't worry.
if someone has a quick question now for Tobias, quickly, he's self-explanatory person, I know. Okay, so let's move on, because I think, yeah, you really do it. I mean, yeah, you explain many things, but it's true that the question is why this work in this panel. So I think it's connected with Joanna's work also about the work itself is a representation of the problem anyway. But
I'm not sure about that. I mean, I kind of like.
let's move on.
Okay,
let's move
fine.
on.
I'm muted. Okay.
Just kidding. Oh, no. Okay. If there is no, and I don't want to ask question. Any question from someone?
I didn't get to read the very fast blurb, but as I remember, there's an Unruh effect in quantum physics, and it has to do,
Yes.
yeah, like observing the black body radiation. And then as I was watching your movie, though, it seemed kind of programmatic to it. Was that also an inspiration?
When working with Jane, we talked a lot about what that type of linear versus more chaotic movements or kind of exchanges of energy forms could take form as. And while she's very excited in working within liquids, for me, the kind of magnetic field exchange was very, very important. I kind of started with it more really starting to make a word that we understand. I mean, as Germans, we understand. About which Unruhe means actually in German that you're not calm, uncalmness. And it's a very disturbing word that describes something that it's actually as well an emotional feeling. Unruhe is really the opposite of serenity. It doesn't mean it's loud or so, but it's a very negative connotation. But at the same time, it's a mechanical word of exchange of energy. And it's actually a very engineering part in any kind of mechanical clock or kinetic exchange. The idea of the quantum physics bringing that in, I think we did not put this in the direction from the beginning, no. It was more like, I would say, that oscillation of energy states and the kind of transformation of that into movement and into a kind of instability as well. It's calming to watch, but it's actually disturbing because you cannot find patterns in it. And you're continuously conformed with something that has a very simplistic linear motion in the beginning, but ends up with something that you want to anticipate but cannot anticipate.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Tobias and Ken. So let's move on to Cedric. Cedric's video, and then your presentation, and then questions.
Chaque participant choisit un oiseau de Hong Kong et explore son interprétation en écoutant les exemples donnés. Ensemble, formez un groupe d'oiseaux statiques ou en mouvement. Expérimentez avec différents lieux et situations d'écoute où les membres peuvent écouter et explorer les volumes de sons créés. Explorez la distance entre les écoutants et l'interaction avec l'environnement direct. Créez différents volumes sonores. Générez différents modèles d'appel-réponse.
Do you have a presentation? Very,
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Okay,
thank
just
you. Yes.
thank you.
So yeah, maybe I'm going to explain a little bit of about this work and maybe a few things about this idea of art in the cloud here. And so that the work that you have seen in the is actually a new version of a performative protocol that was presented for online exhibition for offline participation. Maybe we can go to slide 2. Next slide. Yes, it was selected for Acts of Air in 2020. And it was a project curated by Lisa Hall and hosted by the Creative Center into Sound Art Practices, a research center from the University of the Arts London. So the score and instructions for about this work is for a group performance and invites exploration of how we can sound together differently, taking a lead from birds. Next slide, please. So the work is constituted by a graphical score, instructions, and possible example of interpretations of bird songs from Hong Kong. It is augmented by found images of the birds in the screen field version that we just saw. And again, there's different versions. This one was a very short version of it. Next slide. So the instructions reads like this. So each participant choosing one bird from Hong Kong and explores its interpretations by listening to the provided example. Together, form a static or moving flocks of birds. Experiment with different locations and situations of listening where members may listen to each other. Explore the expanse of sound they create. Explore the distance between listeners and interactions with their direct environment. Create different volumes of sound. Generate different patterns of calls and response. So the title of the work, not quite a catalogue of birds, is a direct reference to the work of Olivier Messiaen, who would transpose bird songs into musical compositions. Yet, in this context, the approach is different, as the focus is not a faithful transposition of the bird song into voice. The example provided are already interpretations of the bird song sung by Jessica Ng, singer from Hong Kong. The focus is thus more to open up the possibility of becoming, to create new point of contacts and encounters through sounds, with a different participant or potential participants. Next slide, thank you. Another background context for this work is the pandemic situation. First of all, this new form of presentation from simply a website to screen films can be traced back in my personal context as being in a hotel quarantine with very limited tools to work when I was asked to participate in this program and how I produced this. And secondly, we all have seen through documentations or direct experience non-verbals reclaiming new territories in our urban spaces during lockdown. And the needs for, so the work reasserts, therefore reasserts here the fact that we do live among animals, plants, and other non-humans, and the need for a radical shift from an anthropocentric views of the world. It fosters a certain sense of contamination as a reference to a Natsing as an encounter that fosters diversity, bifurcation, and new forms of collaborations for survival. Listening and sound making are essential in this process. And like Salomé Vogelin, for example, explained in her book on Sonic Possible World, I quote, "Listening offers another point of view, an alternative perspective on how things are, producing new ideas on how they could be and how we could live in a sonic possible world, and how we could include sound's invisible formlessness in a current realization and valuation of what we understand to be the actual world." I hope this work could be taken as a seed, or even maybe as a virus stored in the cloud, but with potential repercussions and growth in the physical world. And again, I think this is a sense of presence. Bird songs from Hong Kong may be then performed in totally different ecosystems where they would sound foreign and possibly invasive and transformative. Therefore, I'm equally interested in the conceptual possibility of the work as in its experiential dimension in the real world. The form of the work, although hosted in the clouds, opened up with possibilities for becomings and new situations in the real world. And this experiential aspect is an important element of explanation for the choice of this specific work. This idea of experiencing and transformative experience can be traced in some of other works that I have done, such as the AR work Oineris, geolocated AR work in 2 parts, situated in Kowloon Park in Hong Kong. The second scenes create a dreamy, misty landscape. So here we can see actually a screen cap here by infusing an atmospheric cloud and recompose 5-channel sounds of jungle into the Kowloon Park maze garden. So this AR work invites the audience to navigate the real maze in Kowloon Park in Hong Kong and to compose their listening depending on their own positioning in the space, away from a very strong focus on the screen of the phones. Next slide. There is thus a similar idea in these works, that is to forget, or maybe to put aside some technological apparatus that are still fundamental in the making, or actually in the dissemination of the work, as ways to create new experiences in the physical world, opening up new possibilities to discover or rediscover a new sensitive practice of the world. Maybe thinking about the idea of the pharmacon, where digital tools are both poison and cure, and could either serve the destructions of attention and the purpose of a process of proletarianization fostered by neoliberal ideologies, or it could serve more novel purposes and create the possibility to bifurcate and to transform ourselves both individually and collectively. So I think this would be my response to this. And again, I think kind of highlighting this importance for me in the sense of presence and practice and how we can re-engage to the world and heighten our sensitivity to things. Thank you. And maybe if there's time, there may be questions.
Thank you very much. Yes, so question from the panel. No? Okay, so I will maybe just ask some questions. It's really very interesting. I want to know more. Everybody wants. So it seems that you, if I understand well, there are many things that actually concerns you in these works. Is this idea of the presence, you said, like this idea of the participation? I was thinking about something to put in a word. Is you're trying to create experience that look like some sort of tribal experience in which we, of course, we cannot be physically there, but we contribute with could be sound from where I am, and we put them together and we perform that content, that digital content in some cloud as we just saw it, or then you use a real space and we are somehow there because we process that. It's sort of tribal communitary thing. I mean, it made me think about this around Kowloon, for instance, work with $1 nodes. You know, everybody collects stuff to create one work together. But here, this element of performance that is finding more interesting. So what is your final, if you can imagine the perfect work that will answer all these questions? Of course, it's what you do, but
I guess what is interesting to me in the performance aspect is the immediacy of sound and how it is possible to redefine ourselves through sound. And it becomes, it's not in the end about you or about me, but it's about this point of contact and what are we creating together. In sounds, object dissolves, and so we kind of constantly renegotiate how we are and how we live and how we make sounds together. And I think this is the thing that I'm interested in, and of course listening to each other and engaging into this conversation. And in that sense, again, try to, I mean, there's obviously a lot of possible social political things that we could discuss from this idea. But I think this is the thing that I'm interested in.
Right. So speaking, voice, actually, yeah, as you said, like two people talk, the words that produce the communication actually disappear in thin air, but we have this experience. But how this is related to the subject of the panel? In a way, so what's the role that online networks, I mean, play in that performance? Sound is the important thing for you, like connect people. Do you see a parallel, fleeting things that are ethereal because of the internet?
I think what is essential here actually is not so much the presence online, but as a way, like maybe a way of disseminations. And again, it's a protocol that can be done in various contexts, that can be actually be taken, changed, reinterpreted according to various situations. So I think in this idea of how it can be transformed over potential networks, and I think how it's somehow open for people to make it their own as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, so let's move then to, now we have Ellen. Hello. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you, so you have a presentation now? Oh.
Yes, I'm expecting to have my first slide.
Oh, thank you.
Slide number 4, please. Okay, the video we just saw is an edited version of the video ensemble project that I did in May this year. I would like to share the making of the video ensemble project to talk about the art presentation in the digital realm. Video ensemble was curated by Mei Feng and was first shown in 1A Space in 1999. This is the picture of the space in 1999, and I was in the monitors that was pointed out in the picture. The first video ensemble invites 6 video artists, each to show their newly created music or sound and 4 images on 4 TV sets. The 6 participants direct the 24 TV ensemble together on the opening day. The audience can also adjust the volume of the TV sound and create their own audio visual work using the TV remote control. You can see in 1999, everything is still very primitive. The next slide, please. So the second video ensemble 2021, A Room with a View from Isolation, is a sequel to the original analog video exhibition at 1A Space. The 2021 version is an O2O offline to online hybrid interactive installation or exhibition created by local media artist Making Fong and visual artist Wong Warbeck. The 6 artists from the version 1, the original, are invited to the project again, together with 4 new contributors. Now the next slide. So you can see this is the concept picture of the video ensemble 2. The top 2 is the concept picture, and the bottom is a picture of the 3D visualization of the exhibition hall, which is a miniature exhibition hall. And this texts are extract from the proposal to the funder. And unlike the previous exhibition in 1999, where audience are invited to physically walk through 10,000 square feet space to see the standing of 24 TV sets, this new exhibition in 2021 will be a miniature tabletop installation with a total of 27 mini LED TV sets, where a physical walkthrough will be achieved by a camera equipped with remote robotic vehicle accessible through apps and internet browsers and a few webcams hanging above the space. That means the audience need to download the apps and control a mobile camera eye that relay the vision to his or her home screen through the internet. The environment of the physical miniature is very dark, and most mobile cameras captures either the overexposed screens or the total dark environment. Next slide, please. This is also the extract from the text. The rover hover robots are now our camera eyes. From the project proposal, it writes that the public connections to the exhibition will be something like the Martian landscape visit online. Strange, afar, but yet familiar. Inspired by NASA's Mars rovers, which are agents to explore the distant landscape through wireless networks. We developed our Ensemble V2 rover, ground view, and Ensemble V2 hover, top view, as agents for visitors to immerse into the impossible mindscape created by our artists. Through our apps or website, audience can register as tour captain who maneuvers the rover hover or simply joins the tour as visitors. The captain of the rover and hover will target a certain monitor to play back the corresponding soundtrack. Next slide, please. My ideas for the new ensemble is based on the first video that I made in 1997. It's a sound and image of a living subject that can be, the sound and image of a living subject can be relayed in ultrasound, but this sound is silent to human ears. The original image and sound was an edit out from an ultrasound examination on a pregnant patient I had in the hospital when I worked back in 1999. In the new version, I used the same type of image, which is a more advanced ultrasound examination of the fetal heart from an online library. I explored the ontology of the digital image. It erased all the private data of the human being involved, and it is just an image of one healthy heartbeat of the fetus. It is a sellable data file, and I can select different one from the online library. I suspect as a human being, the camera eye in this exhibition will recognize the data flowing, but lack the ability to know the intention of the watermark on the image. Adjacent to this heartbeat is an LED illuminated gate to a car park. I took this video using my mobile camera while I was stopped in a bus in front of a green light. The video and the light was flashy because the tiny movement of the bus engine was exaggerated by the slow motion video. The noise could not be differentiated from the one made by unstable network connection or human factor. The third video is made from a still image from the movie 2001: A Space Oddity, a 1968 classic from Stanley Kubrick. Overlaid with the image of itself is the lyrics of Daisy Bell, the first song that a computer sang in history, and the last one that HAL 9000 sang before it was turned off by Dave, the astronaut of the ship. Next slide, please. Next slide. I always worry the world that are on the verge of something climate change, something bad, something good. Art is like a lighthouse in the non-digital world. It is a radiating point where nomads can see and know where to anchor. If art in the digital realm can be represented by the generative images from the Library of Coke or live images where poetries and reality are just too far away, I still hope to see the new art practice impact our world in a nice way. I go through this question when I make the VE2, and they goes and I put them on the slide here. Like I'm exploring a new space, which is both an online and a physical space. I'm asking whether it's an open space or what kind of art can survive online. What are the audience that will go to the show? What are their attention span? Can I use a GIF or video? How do they navigate on the digital realm? And the resolution, the bandwidth, is it stable? How to make a stable image or an unstable image? Is there a live performance, like a Zoom, that the people, the audience seeing feel like there's a performance? The origin. Also, I would like to ask whether the origin of the image matter to the audience. Next slide, please. So while I was looking at technology at its almost naked form, what is art that is expected to induce affection and experience? Could we induce emotion through numbers like this work, Digital Rain? Actually, from my understanding of the psychology of the audience, the local audience here, the number on the ring panel could be easily related to particular years in Hong Kong history, and hence induce certain emotion, but it could also work the other ways for people from a different background. What I'm trying to say is the cultural identity could be invisible in the digital realm, but it can also stand out in this particular area. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you, and sorry for such a lot of questions.
Thank you very much. So, oh, there is a hand there. Jeffrey, you have a question?
Yeah, so I've excellent presentation. The idea of like a little tiny robot like roving around a little tiny gallery is absolutely hilarious, but also super clever and like really, really interesting. I guess my question is like, as a video artist who's had a very excellent career so far, my instinct would be that like online presentation would come relatively naturally, because like video is like one of the art forms that is already kind of like half digital to begin with. I mean, originally it was film, but now it's like a digital camera making digital files naturally, right? So like, I guess I'm just curious if you feel the same way, and or I guess maybe a different way to put it is like, why am I wrong? Like, why is it? Because it seems like what you've just presented is like very much not just a simple video being displayed. It's like a whole set of interactions and extra stuff.
Thank you for the question. You say that video seems very natural in as we already experienced digital video for many years. I can only half agree with you, because video, of course, we are very used to this kind of presentation like video, like YouTube. But video art, in a way, I think video art is a different kind of video. It's not really the video that we expect from like YouTube. And I think the art intention is very important. The intention behind making the particular image is very important. And I really doubt if, I mean, in the times when people are making movies, making films, the cameraman behind the lens, behind the camera, has taken all the different ideas from the director and film the scene. But I think in the times of YouTube video, for example, people are performing in front of the camera, and the intention is to perform in front of the camera. And there is not a real ideas that is behind the camera. I don't know what I don't know whether I make you understand what I try to say. So I think the art intention is very important. And just like the video that I make, for example, the watermark or the flashy, noisy video, perhaps cannot be identified by the audience. If the audience are used to watching YouTube or TikTok or this kind of video, but if they are watching film, for example, or they are watching more video art, for example, then perhaps they will understand it. And that means the art audience in the digital realm is not the majority of the audience that we encounter. And it's very natural for a common audience to misunderstand the work that I am doing, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, fantastic. So yeah, let's continue then. And then maybe the public will have some chance to say something, because it's so interesting how we are taking all the time. So the next person will be, we have some technical problems, so I don't know at the end if has been.
No, it's the right order.
Oh, right order. Okay.
Yeah.
So John, yeah, please, yeah.
My name is Jane. My name is Jane. My name is Jane.
My name is Jane.
My name is Jane.
My name is Jane. My name is Jane. My name is Jane.
My name is Jane. My name is Jane.
My name is Jane. My name is Jane. My name is Jane.
My name is Jane. My name is Jane.
My name is Jane. My name is Jane. My name is Jane.
My name is Jane. My name is Jane.
My name is Jane.
My name is Jane.
My name is Jane. My name is Jane.
My name is Jane.
My name is Jane.
My name is Jane. My name is Jane. My name is Jane.
My name is Jane.
My name is Jane.
Wow. Okay, thank you very much. So what was your name? Sorry, I forgot. Jane, right? Kidding. We cannot, I think you are mute.
I was just clapping.
Hi.
Yeah, now I can hear you. Jane.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, I'm here now. Yeah, I was mute. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so thank you very much. You have a presentation now?
Yes,
So
yes. So
please, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. First, I want to express my gratitude for inviting me to join the event. And please next page. This is my this is my brief introduction. I got my master's degree in NYU and a PhD in Jiao Tong University in Taiwan, Hsinchu. Now I'm as artist and curator. I also teach in Shixin University in Taipei. And because I'm as the curator, my upcoming exhibition, please next page, please. Yeah, the upcoming exhibition, she said her story in IANA in Washington, DC. If anyone in DC, you can go to the gallery on November. And also the Taiwan International Life Festival in National Taiwan Museum of Fine Art. Okay, next page, please. I began creating digital artwork in 1998 and starting a project in 2002. In 2003, please next page, yeah. In 2003, my solo exhibition, Let's Make Art in the Taipei Museum of Fine Arts. It was the first art exhibition in Taiwan to employ instantaneous web installation. It was a call for artwork project to public. When user upload the images become code and then printed and framed to show in museum. Next page. In 2005, Immersion Me discussed the body measurement and the disappearance in digital era. Audience are measured by 6 webcams. The 6 parts of body will recombined in 6 monitor and 1 projector. The body became particle to merge with others. Okay, next page, please. 2011, Dinner of Luciana Ga is the Art of Technology Crossfield Performing Project. It is the story of the loneliness of people in the digital life. And we create an interactive, next page, please. We create an interactive performance with iPhone app, motion sensing interaction, and the 3D projection mapping. Next. In 2013, the idea of Chimera series is we all are digital hybrid of man and machine. Next. The Chimera's world is a performative installation with the concept of positive and the negative, yin and yang. Next, the audience saw chimeras all over the space by AR. Chimeras also appear in the TV, dinner plate, book, mirror, and the stove. Chimera is the digital virus which penetrates into our body through various device interface and the platform. Next, please. The previous introduction is to let everyone understand the context of my hours. The project of digital portraits is asking the question, does the portrait is the evidence of I? Next, the series original from the word, where are you? The audience entered the name they wanted to search. The system found related photo on Flickr. The face recognition system captures the facial component in photos and then create a portrait. Next. With the same process in 2013, I started digital portrait series till now. The system will create one portrait every day. Jane is the English name given to me by an English teacher when I was 7 years old. When I grew up and went abroad, I introduced myself, my name is Jane. However, when I Google Jane, I cannot find me. It brings the image with the tag Jane, share with anyone who has the name. Next. Also, Jane is not only a name. Next. It also presents the activities, objects, life, memories, landscape, illusion related to Jane. Next. This is a 1096 portrait from January 2018 to December 2020. The image are bird and pool. When the portraits are created by program, the portrait of Jane become flowing, variable, and changeable. The portrait doesn't present me, but the synthesized Jane. Next, in 2016, Jane has a Facebook account and published fact travel photo and the emotionless poem titled Traveling to. Next. In 2017, I began a Jane's Diary project, which creates sentence by fetching the post of account with ID Jane on Twitter every day. The program collects, edits, and recreates the text into a diary without AI and translate to Chinese by Google without correction. Next. So on the top of the cabinet is printed to flyers. Diary become a leaflet you can throw away. Next. This is the detail of Jane's diary. You can read the sentence is without any AI correction. Next. This is the printing book of Jane's Diary 2020. He has 732 pages, and the people love to read it during the exhibitions. Next, this is the gallery space with 750 portraits and surrounded by the diary, read by computer voice. It creates an environment covered and haunted by Jane. Next. A diary is a personal record of feeling of the day and express one's private emotion. The diary of August 2018 analyzed. Through effective computing, the 31 bottles of perfume were produced according to the emotion and the aroma ratio of the Jane's diary. The audience, next please. The audience read the content and pick the perfume according to their sentiment to create the scent of the Jane. In the exhibition, the audience love to play with perfume. Next. Now Jane has IG. You can review Jane's portrait every day. All the hours of phones are to prove its existence of virtual Jane. Thank you. You can visit my website to see all the work. Thank you so much.
Oh, well,
yeah.
Amazing. So is Jane here? One of the Janes I want to ask questions. We are all Jane. Amazing.
Jane. One Jane is here.
Yeah.
But now I call myself Eugene, not Jane.
Okay. Right, Eugene. Eugene is here. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, anyone's
Jane's like the perfect name because, you know, in America, Jane Doe represents an unknown everybody. Right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you.
Who was the teacher? Very, very smart teacher. You know, it changed your life. You're doing artworks and then, yeah.
Literally, I've been an artist and then be a teacher.
What was the name of the teacher? Jane, maybe. No, very interesting. So, I mean, it's perfectly related to the subject, right, of identity, and it's resonates with everybody's reflection. So yeah, anybody has questions on this? Because really now I want to discuss with all of you around maybe wine party. No questions?
Well, yeah. then you can go to Instagram to find Jen. You can watch
I have
her
just
every
a
day.
question.
Yeah, yes.
So I could not find where I can put my hand up, a virtual one. But I have a question if now with this new life, digital life of Jane, you think that it is like a new step in your work, in your project, and how you envision the future of the project?
Oh, in the future, actually, because I just had the solo exhibition last year, and I'm still under some resting for the next project. I'm still thinking, but I think I will try to make Jane with me, my personal project with Jane together to find a new way to merge me with virtual Jane together. But I still thinking the possibility and how to do it. And I don't know, because sometimes people think the portraits looks like a very ugly and horrible. So some people will tell me, why don't I use AI to create a very realistic Jane? I don't know. I'm still thinking about the next step, how to create the Jane in the future. Yeah, because for me, every step or every images, I need to think a lot and to think about the meaning and why I should do it. For example, why the Jane had to be very realistic, like a real person. Because for me, when we go to internet, everybody is changing our identity in different kind of social media. For example, in my personal IG, I am the one who love to eat delicious food. So my personal IG is only food. And Jane has his own IG, and my Facebook is the connection with friends, and on Twitter is just to show to read the others' opinion and to share the opinion of the art. So for me, everybody is flowing in the internet. We have many faces on the internet. So I don't think it had to be very like a realistic person of Jane, but I'm not sure. Some people will give me some idea. I'm thinking. Yeah.
But it's very interesting because there is a sort of reversal. Not usually, so for instance, Jeffrey was asking, you have the real work and then you have a representation online. And now, in a way, by your process, you create a Jane that lives online. It's no problem. It's a mashup of all these activities, wishes, and faces. And then you're trying to represent it in the real world. So it's just, and then you don't know how. Maybe it's not really possible, or
actually,
you are the avatar. Sorry.
Actually, in my personal exhibition, my solo exhibition, all the Janes in a real gallery. But I try to use some kind of like a video and like a perfume, real object to prove the Jane, the digital Jane is there.
Right. Or you can make a call, just call all the Janes, the real ones from where you really scrap their identity and you make a party with 1,000 Janes and the virtual Jane somewhere is there, you know?
Good idea. Maybe we can have an online VR chat Jane's party together. Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah.
Anyone has a question for Jane? So, okay, great. So now let's quickly move on to Ken. You are the only one now, or is there many Ken?
So,
how many Kens? Thank you very much, Jane. And yeah, so video and then. Wow. Lucky that someone called you, otherwise you would have stayed there, right? So I think it's okay. Please, this
Okay.
is very strong. This work. So please, yeah, can you?
Thank you. Oops, nice. Okay. A year spent online during COVID times, the preponderance of living in virtual space has dissolved the boundaries of the physical, distorting our sense of time, even ourselves. The present handicap, manifested in data exchange latency and audio pixelation, are conditions of a larger ontological disease, lacking the normative physical responses upon which we had depended on for our phenomenological trace of having lived. What now can stand for our test for our living? Is everything, even our lives, mere representation? Given the redaction of classical platforms of physical exchange, the rapid migration to online platforms is understandable. People still want to feel like they are being productive, even if, in enacting such a shift, they are servicing the acceleration of our culture towards the endgame of neoliberalism. All technology are pharmacons, after all. Is it the case that the pressures of fieldism, the symptoms of what Byung-Chul Han calls the burnout society and its outputs, are endemic of the same disease that have stricken TikTokers and Instagram influencers? The archive of having lived is reduced to data points. The post-Benjaminian, post-Baudrillardian consequence is the etiolation of our physical lives. MP3s normalized lower audio fidelity, a spectral filtering. Many pieces of music were deemed economically unviable for the transition to digitization and are now lost. Digitization also filters out historical grains, local specificity, gender performativity, and other culture-based contours. The Kardashian selfie reduces human experience to a synchronic meme. So, the vertical spectral domain as well as the linear are compressed in our current culture. Kitchen Breath, the 1-minute video presented online as part of this conference, points to other works of mine in which I am trying to reclaim physical presence. In these works, the physical tension and the risk of death are more palpable than in the minute afforded this little video. For physiovalence to operate, a work needs to be given an appropriate temporality of engagement with the audience long enough that the physical state and by extension the mental state of the audience might empathically align with the artwork's intent. A minute is not quite long enough to feel the full physical impact of me holding my breath. Here's an excerpt from my piece Tarred, wherein I hold my breath in a bowl of water for 2 minutes as an analog to how I have felt my breath has been suspended since November 2016, as well as how I feel my voice as a person of color has been muted in the United States. In a recent work, I bruised myself after smacking my chest with a microphone for 15 minutes. Each time we make a mark, that gesture is informed by every time we have practiced and performed that mark. The pounding of my heart is calligraphic in a similar way, informed by practice and rehearsal. I am also the canvas and bear the bruised accumulation of the gestural iterations on my body, a trace to this author, an authenticating gesture. So, kitchen breath, in its failure, stands as a critique of the growing trend towards the synchronic presentation of materials privileging techne, wherein material developments are foregrounded, decoupled from the body, a symptom of neoliberalism. In such a space, a minute is considered a sufficient temporal expositional frame. Eventually, poesis will begin to feel like an aesthetic value. Neoliberalism has the tendency to filter out subjugated knowledges as well, as copious examples of latent racism and AI algorithms attest. I acknowledge that there are positive affordances too of ways in which recent technological developments can add value to people's lives. A pharmacon is both medicine and poison. But in an era in which digitization increasingly renders us all anonymous, I want to stand and reclaim the trace to the author, trace identities back to their specific bodies, celebrate my bruise as my proof of having lived. I am a Spartan 300, defending Thermopylae against the onslaught of the Xerxesian hordes of zeros and ones. I will hold my breath and pound my heart until the end of recorded physical time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that was profound. So we almost feeling ashamed that we are using digital medium. As such, it's true. Like, I mean, it was powerful. Okay, so anyone have some question or reflection or reaction?
I have a question for Ken. Ken,
Yes.
Your outfit is not the same as
Yes.
before.
This is the same
you-
as Kitchen Breath. And then I was wearing, right, this as, it, you know, the same costume I was wearing in Forms of Erasure, the slide from the first picture, my collaboration with Viola Yip, who was a presenter yesterday. That was a piece earlier in the summer in which we performed telematically from Berlin, her in Germany and me in Berkeley. And then the theme, the instrumentation, shall we say, was the affordances of failure of Zoom space and how these artifacts are produced through visual pixelation, and and also in terms of the audio, there's weird filtering, gating effects, and also feedback and other kind of potentials. So that if we fetishize a normal concert stage, we might make us be more nostalgic for the classical concert stage, but we wanted to see if there are ways in which there are maybe subjugated knowledges in tweaking what's here and foregrounding those potentials. Yeah, so I did a costume change. Yeah.
Because before I have a discussion with Alvaro about your T-shirt on the video. So we found that there is a lot of message on it, but well, if you maybe it's just between the Alvaro and I.
Oh, I mean, being a fan of the Japanese soccer team.
No, because your T-shirt, yes, well, I think with actually the whole setting of the kitchen brief, I like it very much because now you move it from stage to a home place, which is really a home place, the kitchen, and everything is very related to life, even your outfit. And but t-shirt for me is a lot of message. It's a daily wear things first,
The
and the
kitchen,
second.
exactly. I thank you. The kitchen was also where I was teaching for most of the year.
Yeah.
Right. It became a performative stage, right, via Zoom, and then there was a virtual background. Yeah.
About your t-shirt again, because we found a message from the America and the message from the Japan, somehow related to your identity, your nationality, maybe by chance. But for us, it's very interesting. There are a lot of message. Something maybe your something you like, nice soccer and Adidas.
It's not by
Interesting.
chance.
It's not by chance. Okay, good.
It's a costume. Yeah, that's why I'm also
It's a
wearing it today.
costume.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Yeah, also a big fan of costumes. So I'm curious, like, well, I mentioned yesterday, I think the guy's name is Victor, was talking about physical danger, right? Like in arts performances particularly. And obviously the piece you showed in both forms, in the original on stage and then also just now in the truncated video version, center around physical danger to yourself, and they play directly on the audience. I guess one would say empathizing, or it's hard to say, right? But like basically the danger your body is in, or even just the.
Hello?
I'm just going to ask you the same question in terms of like, do you think that it's the same or different doing is just showing the video? Because I mean, you can watch a video online and you still get a very visceral reaction the whole time.
There's the paradox of fiction, sure, right. But then I'm saying that these digital means point to the live, right? And I hope that the people who've been able to experience my live performances could also then kind of understand that in the way that I've rehearsed my whole life listening to my favorite bands. And I have an article where I say, as opposed to what Walter Benjamin says, I think that each time I listen to my favorite artists, like the Rolling Stones, I was rehearsing to receive the authentic, so that every time I went to a hotel and heard a cover band playing, I knew it was not the real thing. And for 30 years, it was like that until I was finally able to see Mick and Keith, and it was extra special, right? So, but there are things in my field, classical music, where, for example, no matter how good Yo-Yo Ma is, he could be replaced, right? And then there are racialized contours as an Asian American participating in a field, classical music, which is, that we've been marginalized. We have access to participation from the onset. So I'm also thinking of ways in which I could create a unique space where that my being myself is much more intrinsic. Yeah, but you asked about danger. I practice. So the extreme kind of palpable viscerality is broadcast, and it's dangerous when the percussionists slow down in rehearsal. Right, and that happens. Because I'm holding my breath and it's calculated. They have to be at tempo. But if it slows down, then it becomes dangerous. If they just do what they're, right at tempo, for example. Yeah, and then like pounding my heart, I practice. I'm also an athlete, and I'm also inspired by people like Murakami, who's a marathon runner, and he's written things like what I talk about when I talk about running is preparing your body, right? Not only for a particular work, but for making it sustainable. And there are artists like Matthew Barney who's foregrounded their athleticism, maybe, right? Also in commentary to some of the things that's going on about materiality and the vulnerability of the trace to the author nowadays, and people are trying to reclaim that in different ways. But there's also a ritual aspect because I practice. It's, you know, and it's also, there's maybe perhaps a sacrificial element in performance, a kind of giving, if you will.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess, and part of the viscerality of watching it is being able to see quite legibly that you practice this, and we're seeing the 100th time you've done it versus the first time or something. I don't know. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah. Do you think that it? So okay. So your answer is that it's definitely in person is the real thing. The video
Yes.
is just yeah. That makes sense. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to add something up because you were talking about these affordances of the media, the camera rake, and to add to what you both are saying is it's interesting because you do a performance like this when there is a risk and you know maybe you're jumping and you may fall somewhere or you are, and then suppose that you have a crash and you stay there longer. So this actually create this expectation and stress and the. Is the person dead or suffering during the performance? You don't know. It's like I think it's a also interesting way of it's not it's a failure in this sense of I don't know, using this possibility of failure to make it to look at the performance from outside. Actually, I was kind of stressed, you know, what is happening, and yeah, and you never know. It's like the news and lose the yeah.
Well, that's
Anyway.
part of the way we are wired as empathic beings. If you're a nice guy, so you see the precarity of what I'm, and you're feeling it physically. That's what I'm proposing with that physiovalence is a way to kind of empathically broadcast and communicate the presence of our bodies.
Okay.
Yeah, it's also a test of empathy.
Yeah. I felt bad, so I'm a nice person. Okay, felt stressed. So yeah, thank you very much to everybody. I think we are now open to questions from the public, and I think I don't know if it's Charlie or who has been compiling these questions and selecting 3 winners. Hello, Anne? Other question from the public?
Okay,
No question.
if there's no question, I have my final question. So that is for all the panelists, including Alvaro, our moderator. That is, please prepare yourself. Can art be in line with online? That is my question. You can give me one answer. You can give me one sentence, one phrase, or one word. Can art be in line with online?
In line? Align?
In line,
yeah.
In line with online, yes. So maybe we start from you, Alvaro.
From me?
Yes. Answer. One sentence,
quickly.
one phrase, one word.
But the question is online a medium or a space where I will use for presenting something different? So what's online? Answer.
In
Next.
line.
No, I mean, okay. Medium or another space? That's a question. Can I use it?
Another space, maybe.
I don't know. My answer is a question. Okay. No, I mean, I should. So maybe better let the others.
Okay.
Because,
Tobias.
It can be outlined.
Thank you. And Joanna? Joanna, we cannot hear you.
I think I didn't understand.
Sure. I think that now it's all about communication. And as Alvaro said, what is online? It's the one of other environments of the communication processes. So of course, art is already online, inline, outline. I think it's connecting all spaces.
Thank you. And Cedric?
As long as it stays offline.
Sorry, I beg your pardon.
I said, as long as it stays offline.
Thank you. And Jeffrey?
Depends on the art and depends on the online. Mostly depends on the art.
Good. Ken?
The online part is just like an environment, and I would like to think that in the future some artists create something that needs to live there. But the inline part, I think there's a quotient of being an artist that is about irreverence. So conforming, inline, that's the part I would take question.
Thank you. And so I call you Jane or you Jane?
Well, I think no matter inline or online, actually we are line. We are line. We connect with others all the time, no matter computer or mobile phone or our thought, our DNA. We are line.
Okay, thank you. So thank you very much. So last but not the least, may we have the group photos for those audience who are so kind to stay with us. So please join us and turn your video on if possible. So
imagine now they put the images and all the public was all Janes. It was super stressful.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. So yes, and thank you very much. So, but some little reminders. We will have another panel discussion tomorrow. So we hope to see you again tomorrow. And besides, please don't miss our programs at Garden Hong Kong. We have a lot of programs there. and on 12th, we will have a wine sharing party physically at Osage Gallery in Hong Kong. So Alvaro, so you can come and drink, and well, we can have another discussion.
Can I invite my friends, all Janes?
All Janes, yes. For those who are in Hong Kong, please come to join us. If you are not in Hong Kong, please join us on Zoom. And one more thing, we will have the Garden Hong Kong, the physical exhibition at Osage Gallery from 12th to 17th. So all your video work will be there. So again, if you are in Hong Kong, please come. Yeah. Okay, thank you, and hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Alvaro. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.